The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, thinking they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
Oh, yeah, we got a Super Bowl to talk about, and we got a little college basketball to sprinkle in. This may not have been on your radar, but it was on mine over the weekend. Very impressive win for Maryland. Maybe it's too little, too late. We'll see. Still some season left. Maybe to make a run in the Big Ten tournament. Who knows? But a season that was lost and had been characterized by unbelievably bad shooting. It all came together in a home game over the weekend, which I will get to. And also, speaking of homecoming, or home, the home for Ed Cooley is Providence, Rhode Island, where he grew up and he coached Providence for 12 years. Went back there. And I didn't think the reception would be quite what it was, but, woo, boy, this was a big, big deal. We'll talk about that and other things as we roll towards 11 o'clock. Tony's got a show today. I think the most important order of business, though, is getting Taylor Swift from her concert in Tokyo to the Super Bowl. If you don't know, you will know, and you will know over and over and over again over the next 2 weeks, that she's scheduled to perform the night before the Super Bowl, February 10th at 6 o'clock in Japan. And she has to get from her concert to Las Vegas the next day in order to see her boyfriend play. Now, Tokyo is 14 hours ahead of the East Coast, meaning she'll be going back in time as she travels to the United States. That'll make things a little bit easier. She's expected to be on stage in Tokyo till about 11 o'clock. Doesn't have to fly commercial. Doesn't have to worry about a flight being delayed or anything like that. She gets on a private plane, but it's a schlep. If she leaves, let's say at midnight, or maybe even later than that, you got to figure if she finishes at 11, it's going to take her more than an hour to get to the airport. But just for grins, let's say she leaves at midnight. That's a 10 to 12-hour flight. Means she gets in Las Vegas probably about 8 o'clock, maybe even as close to 10 o'clock on Saturday night. They get her to the hotel, I guess, as quickly as possible. And I guess she'd have enough time because the game would be played the following day at, 3 o'clock Vegas time, right? It's West Coast time there. So she'd have some hours, but it'll be tiring for sure. But she seems to be up for it, and she's showing up at every game. And now you got the crazy brother who jumps on. You know, you got Jason Kelsey, who is all part of the entourage. And the entourage seems to be growing. Do you see the size of the box at M&T Bank Stadium? Not the actual size of the box, but the number of people who are in the box. I don't know who these people are, but they've obviously gained a lot of hangers-on as this thing has progressed. And look, it's good for business. I just heard Michelle Smallman say it on our morning show here that it's estimated that she has brought in $331 million to the Chiefs and the NFL. They're not gonna push this away. They're loving this, and the television ratings are through the roof. Maybe it's because of the actual games that are being played. Be interesting to see what the number is from yesterday. I'm sure it's enormous. They had, 50 million people watch them a couple of weeks ago in the Buffalo playoff game. So this could be even bigger, and I'm sure it will be bigger. And the Super Bowl, it may set a record. And I believe this is the case. I think the most watched Super Bowl was the one after the 1981 season in Detroit. It was in Detroit. It was watched by, I don't remember what the number was, or maybe that was the biggest share, whatever it is. This could break records because of the Taylor Swift factor. I mean, the halftime show, if you don't know, the halftime show for Super Bowls, that gets a better rating than the game. Yeah, there are a lot of people who want to know when the halftime's coming on so they can go watch it, and they're not really that interested in football, even though the Super Bowl draws a lot of people who have never watched a football game all year. So we're set for some really big numbers coming up. And if you know, I'm not sick of Taylor Swift and the whole story. I think it's fun. I think it's all part of the big show. And that's what the NFL is. It's a big show. It's an entertainment product, which is highly successful, which is propping up network TV in a way that it never had in the past. I mean, it used to be, like I was talking about this yesterday with a friend of mine. Back in the day, the AFC or NFC championship game, whichever one they had first, would be played on the Sunday starting at 12:30. it would be over in time to get to the 4 o'clock kickoff for the second game, which would wrap up in time to start 60 minutes on time. Well, those days are long gone. You want to get into prime time, as they did last night with the Lions and the 49ers, and the numbers are just eye-popping compared to everything else that's particularly on network TV. And even when they put it on streaming, a playoff game on streaming that had 23 million people watching. It's insane. All right, there was a man many years ago who sat in this building, not in this exact studio, but in this building, and would say over and over again, more games are lost than won. The late, great Ken Beatrice, that was one of his sayings. More games are lost than won. And he was 100% right. And what we saw yesterday was 2 games where the winning team overcame a team that lost the game. Let's put it that way. It was more that the Ravens lost and more that the Lions lost than the Chiefs won and the 49ers won. Because what we saw from the Ravens was not something we had seen all year. They had been so dominant that I thought this wasn't even going to be close. Yeah, the Kansas City Chiefs are defending champs, and yeah, they look good the previous week. But, man, what the Ravens did to themselves was stunning, turning the ball over, even defensively, doing things that they really hadn't done all year, letting the Chiefs just drive the ball down their throats. And Travis Kelce, in the first half, Travis Kelce caught 10 passes on 10 targets. He would just go to where he wanted to go, and Patrick Mahomes would find him there. And he made a couple of great catches, and the touchdown catch was a terrific catch. But it was just him finding those holes in the zone, as they say, sitting down and being served up by Patrick Mahomes. Now, here's what Barry Zerluga writes in his column today. He covered the game yesterday in Baltimore. He said that about the Ravens, the team that led the NFL in turnover margin lost 2 fumbles and an interception and couldn't force a mistake by the Chiefs. The team that led the league in rushes and rushing yards abandoned that formula, rushing fewer times, 16, for fewer yards, 81, than it had in any game this season. The team that had Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs pinned at their 11-yard line with less than 2 minutes remaining in the first half committed a pair of personal fouls, the first on linebacker Kyle Van Noy and the second on tackle Travis Jones to hold the Chiefs' hands as it ushered them into field goal range. Quote, the only team that can beat the Ravens, none other than Maryland Governor Wes Moore told the Post's Nikki Javala before the game, are the Ravens. And that's true. It's like the old Pogo cartoon. We have met the enemy, and it is ourselves. There's also the game plan that was put together. And this was Tim Hasselbeck last night with Scott Van Pelt on how this was a poorly constructed game plan by the Ravens.
I think they're going to not love their plan, I think, is ultimately what they'll see. Now, I think some of it is, look, if you look at the number of running back carries they had, just 6 carries for their running back. Like, that's not a Ravens offense. It just isn't. Now, some of that might be, look, you got away from it a bit because of the hot start that Kansas City got off to, but there was still plenty of football left that you didn't have to abandon the run game. So I think they'll look back at that, and they'll be frustrated by that. I think the other aspect of it is this, Scott. There was really no quick game. Get the ball out of your hand quickly. And because of that, I thought Lamar was under a lot of pressure. He missed throws down the field. Here's a good example. 1st and 10, like, they take a shot. It's not there. They come back and kind of do the same exact thing. You get a 3rd and 1 in this football game. The ball's not out of his hands quickly. He's holding the football, looking for stuff down the field. Like, to me, that's not the plan. And I think sometimes when you play a Steve Spagnuolo defense, you get a lot of these zone pressures. You can sometimes want to say, hey, we're afraid to throw into a window, a zone dropper, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But I think the plan of holding on to the football and try to shoot it down the field, it clearly did not work.
Off running. That's all the credit to Steve Spagnuolo. Yep. Dials up an absolute masterpiece. And again, this was the 2nd best scoring defense in the National Football League going up against the 1st best. If we're going to give Kansas City and that defensive side their credit, where's that start? I think it starts with his plan to get after Lamar Jackson because he came after him. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of times people are afraid to come after Lamar Jackson because he'll take off and make plays. They scheme block this on the play action. This one's just a 4-man rush. And this kind of goes into trying to push the ball down the field. But trust your edge rushers.
Don't paralyze them by saying you have to shadow the quarterback. Let them get up the field. Then this is an example of what we're talking about. Everyone's going down the field. The ball.
Well, I edited that poorly. My mistake. But you get the gist of it, that the plan that the Ravens had put together was not good for the one that Steve Spagnuolo countered with. And remember Spagnuolo was going to be the coach here. Remember that? He was tied up with the Giants in the Super Bowl, and they waited and waited and waited until the Giants won. He came in to interview, and he said, I don't want any part of this clown show. And that's when they got Jim Zorn. As far as what we saw from Lamar Jackson yesterday, he did make some spectacular plays, including a 13-yard reception to himself. He had the presence of mind with a batted ball to pick it off and carry it for 13 yards. But his numbers are not good. He was 20 of 37 for 272 yards, but he did have the interception. And they didn't really like the fact that he had to run as much as he did. He was their leading rusher with 54 yards, 8 carries, as we heard Hasselbeck say, only 6 carries for running backs. That's not going to get it done. This needed to be more of a ball control game for them, and they did not do that well. So there's that. Now there's also this, and I was critical of it in the last game after they won. I'm not comfortable with John Harbaugh reading Bible passages to start his news conferences. I don't think that's the place for it. I really don't. I think that, your religion and your religious feelings should be your own. They don't really have a place in a news conference. But he did it again yesterday. And if I were the league, I'd look into this and I'd say, this is not really what we want to be doing here. Everybody's entitled to their own religious beliefs. Everybody's entitled to their own feelings about religion, and we don't need to be doing that in a news conference. That's just my feeling. You may feel differently, but I'm not comfortable with that. Now, as far as what he said to his players after this 17-10 loss, this was Harbaugh on that.
I was proud of them. I'm proud of the season that they had. I feel like it was a team that had a lot of challenges. I don't think it was a team that was too highly touted coming into the season by the pundits and the prognosticators and all that. And I think they proved a lot of people wrong all year. Quarterback made a statement all year. So many players that had so much to prove. I think of a guy like John Simpson, just off the top of my head, who had so much to prove and come in and play the way he did. Jadeveon Clowney, Kyle Van Noy, just 2 guys that came in late, that didn't seem like anybody else wanted, right? And they came in and played the way they did. So there's so many stories on this team, so many individual stories. The message is to eyes straight ahead, your chin up, your chest out, and understand what you did accomplish. And I'm proud of him.
Yeah. Now Lamar Jackson did say that he's not frustrated. He's angry, but he offered no excuses.
We had some opportunities out there. Just got to take advantage of them. Can't turn the ball over. Fumble, interception, stuff like that. They gave them the opportunity to, put points on the board and win the game. We get in that red zone. It's been our touchdown all season. We just got to finish, and we didn't do a good job on finishing. Defense did a wonderful job, but held a great offense at 17 points. We got to execute. We scored 1 touchdown, and that's not like us. That was early on in the year. No excuses, though. We got to take advantage.
Yeah, they did. And as far as this season, he'll win the MVP. It's a regular season award. But I think this could be one of the best teams to not make a Super Bowl. We always talk after the Super Bowl, the teams that were the best teams that didn't win. I put like Washington's 1983 team. Or how about the maybe this team goes along with Minnesota. We talked about them 25 years ago, where they had the best kicker in the league. Gary Anderson hadn't missed all year. A chip shot field goal would have given them a victory over the Atlanta Falcons. He missed. Game went to overtime. Falcons won, and they got clobbered by Denver in the Super Bowl. So maybe they're in that category, because what we saw from yesterday didn't resemble what we saw throughout the season. But as for Lamar's takeaway,
very proud of my team. New system, offensive coordinator, different things we've seen, motion, stuff like that. Adversity at the beginning of the season, we wasn't playing well. People don't know what the Ravens' offense or defense is going to look like. And we made it all the way to this point. A goal short. We made it here, but we just got to finish next time. But I'm very proud of my team.
But you don't know if you're going to be back next time. See, that's the thing about the NFL. We don't know what injuries are going to happen next year. We don't know what team is going to be better in the AFC. You know, you get your shot, you got to make the most of it. They did not, which is what Dan Campbell's message was last night. Now, he's going to take some criticism and should. You know, I'm not one of those that said, oh, don't criticize Dan Campbell because he played the way he did all year. No, that was dumb, not kicking those 2 field goals. That changed the complexion of the game, and that played a big factor in why they lost the game. And he's a guy, as you know, wears his heart on his sleeve. I was dead wrong about him when he was hired. I thought he was a one-and-done lunkhead who talked about biting kneecaps, but he's built a culture and he's built a tough team. But you can't look at a game as it unfolds and have the lead that they had, scoring almost at will in the first half, leading 24-7, and then thinking that, oh, we're just going to be able to do what we did, you know, in a game in November and go for it on 4th down all the time. I would have taken points. It's not like I'm second guessing. I said at the time, take the field goal. Didn't do it. And obviously, after the game, very distraught.
You know, you feel like you get your heart ripped out. So, but I'm proud of that group, and I'll go anywhere with that group. And you wish you could keep it all together, but that's not the reality. So, you know, we did some really good things, but today we didn't do enough, and it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of key players, you know, who everybody, obviously you're going to have your quarterback Jared Goff back, and you're going to have Amon St. Brown, and, you know, you're going to have star players. But it's those role players who help to glue things together who you don't know are going to come back next year. You don't know what your team is going to look like. It's going to have some changes. And will this group, with what's left of it, will it be able to do what it did again? I think he's spot on with that. I don't think he was spot on for going for it on 4th down twice in the second half when he could have made field goals. And he's willing to accept the criticism, but not backing down from what he did.
2 4th down decisions that were critical in the second half. Neither one was converted. You know, particularly the second one. Why not take a field goal there and maybe stem the bleeding a little bit?
Yeah, I just felt really good about us converting and getting our momentum and not letting them play long ball. You know, they were bleeding the clock out. That's what they do. And I wanted to get the upper hand back, you know, and it's easy hindsight, and I get it, you know. I get that. But I don't regret those decisions, and that's hard. You know, it's hard because, you know, we didn't come through. It wasn't able to work out, but I don't. And I understand the scrutiny I'll get. That's part of the gig, man. But, you know, we just didn't work out.
So, second time in 4 years, here we go. It's the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers. And I think it's the best matchup. You know, they earned it, and Kansas City showed that they're not ready to go down. They may have hit a lull in the middle of the season, and all that stuff about Travis Kelce being distracted by Taylor Swift. Didn't look distracted yesterday, did he? In fact, they're going into this game like they were yesterday. They're underdogs. San Francisco is the early betting favorite going into the Super Bowl, but it was a good Super Bowl last time around. Kansas City had a lead, which they coughed up. Do they have a better quarterback now than Jimmy Garoppolo? Maybe. You know, Brock Purdy, see, it didn't look good in the first half, but, you know, made the plays he needed to make in the second half. Is he Joe Montana? No, he's not, but is good enough with the talent that he has around him to overcome a huge lead. And I thought at the half, I didn't think they had much of a chance at all. But defense played well. Some, I think, poor decisions by Dan Campbell played into it, and they got it done with Brock Purdy, who will become, I think this is the case. Well, I guess you have to go back years ago because of Bart Starr. He may have been like a 10th round pick. But, you know, in let's say post-merger, I think this is correct. Purdy's the lowest drafted quarterback ever to start a Super Bowl. Because, you know, for all that Tom Brady won, he was a 6th round pick. Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, last pick in the draft. Crazy. All right, let me get to the college basketball stuff from the weekend. Also, Joe Flacco had an interview with Dan Patrick on Friday, and he said something about how he was contacted and when he was contacted by Cleveland, which, and I know you're going to say, don't pick on him, stop. He tweets nonstop. So if Robert Griffin is going to put himself out there, I got to point out where he's making things up. And I'm going to give you something from Joe Flacco that I think makes the point that Robert Griffin III is completely snowing people about this interest that he has from other teams around the league. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
All right, so we had a football-less Saturday. I'm not sure about this, but that may have been the first one since August, right, between the college football and the playoff games that they have in the NFL. So we had no football on Saturday, and allowed me to watch a lot of college basketball. Not that I couldn't watch college basketball if football was on, but of course I always choose football. And Maryland had a noon tip at home against Nebraska. Nebraska's a pretty good team, and they lost to them earlier this season at Nebraska. And once again, they got off to a bad start. Maryland has done that throughout the year, clanking threes, and I thought, here we go again. But they turned it around and had a shockingly easy win, 73-51, with their best player, Jameer Young, the Big Ten second leading scorer, having an okay day. He had 12 points. You know, they usually don't win when he has 12 points. He was not shooting well, 5 of 15 from the field, but they got some really big performances. Julian Reese, rebound after rebound after rebound, and Jamie Kaiser, who's a freshman, recruited as a three-point shooter, who's been terrible throughout the season as a three-point shooter. 4 of 5 from 3. He had 14 off the bench. Maryland as a team this year had been averaging 7 points from their bench per game. He got twice that himself coming off the bench as they came from 10 points down early and were able to get their most lopsided Big Ten home win since December 27, 2016, when they beat Illinois 84-59. So they win it by 22, 73-51, and it really wasn't even that close. I mean, they closed the first half on a 16-2 run, 13-2 early in the second half, and this game was out of hand. And there just haven't been many laughers like that this season. Is it too late? It may be too late. I mean, Maryland is still going to have an uphill battle in order to make it to the NCAA tournament. They're 13-8 on the year, 5-5 in the Big Ten. They still have plenty of Big Ten games left to go, but they're going to have to pull some big upsets to do it. So far, the biggest one they pulled off is a win at number 10 Illinois, or last week or the week before. But it is encouraging that a team that is so dependent on Jameer Young was able to do it with production from other people, and particularly Julian Reese, who's had games this year where he had one game where I don't think he had any points. Another game I think he had 1 point. So that's what they need. That's what they need to make happen. And if they can get the Big Ten record, now it's 500. If they can get that, 4 or 5 games over 500, they may have a shot, and it may depend on what they do in the NCAA tournament. Got a game at Michigan State Saturday, so they got a whole week off before they play there. That ain't easy. We're getting closer and closer to March. We'll be in February by then, and Tom Izzo in March is a difficult task. The other game that you may or may not have paid much attention to was Georgetown playing at Providence. And I thought this would be a fairly big deal. Ed Cooley going back to Providence, where he coached for 12 years, where he was from, and where people assumed he would spend the rest of his coaching career. But he left. He left for Georgetown, and the people were not happy about this. I mean, I would think that they might say, well, thank you for what you did. You built the program up and to being very respectable. In the 12 years, he made it to the tournament 7 times, made it to the Sweet 16 in 2022, and he was named Coach of the Year. They won the Big East that year. He built the program back up to where it had not been in a long, long time. I mean, Providence basketball hasn't been exactly, a headline material since like Ernie DiGregorio played there. So he went to Georgetown, and apparently the feelings were really, really raw there My son texted me. He spent 3 years working in Boston. He's got a lot of friends there. And he said, this is going to be huge. He says, you watch. Well, it was. And the students, they lined up for hours to get in there. As soon as they opened the door, they don't have reserved seating, so they all ran to their seats, jumping all over each other. And Ed Cooley, when he walked out on the floor for warm-ups, got greeted with chants of F. Ed Cooley. And there was even worries about security. They had positioned 18 cameras, or positioned, I should say, extra cameras around the arena. 18 police officers outside the area, plus 11 more inside. 54 security officers hired through a private firm for the game. There was real concerns about this. This was a big, big thing. Now, Kim English is the one who replaced Cooley when Cooley came to Georgetown. English had been at George Mason. And so he comes, stepping up in a program size into the Big East. And he gets to campus, and he's like, okay, why is everybody talking about this game that's going to take place in January? Our season starts in November. Here's what he said in the post-game after Providence won the game 84-76.
In October, we'd be walking on campus, and fans would say, January 27th, and I'd say November 6th. And they were like, no, January 27th. I was like, November 6th. And, I pushed back. This game obviously meant a lot. I still don't think they would want us to go 1-29 or 1-30. But it was a game we needed. Outside of all the extracurriculars, all the fan stuff, it was a chance at home to go above 500 in league play, which made it a great game. You guys don't have any questions about the game. That's nothing about basketball. That's incredible.
Yeah, and it continued that way as once again he was asked about, what was the atmosphere like out there on the court?
I don't know why it was so crazy for 4-4 versus 1-7 Big East team. I don't. But maybe there was something else going on. But it was electric. It looked like a playoff game when we went in. The crowd is incredible. This place is amazing. This place is amazing. And if you think for a second it's not, you can never understate how important home court is. And from Columbia to Sacred Heart to Marquette to Wisconsin to Georgetown, it's what this building can do. It's it was better than Fog Island tonight, and I think that's the best place in the country. It was incredible.
Did it exceed your expectations? The crowd?
I didn't really have expectations. I went all in. We have a big-time recruit here. I told his family, and they've been to Indiana, they've been to Kansas, and I told them, it'll be like nothing they've ever seen. And it was. After the game, they agreed.
Yeah, no problems from Ed Cooley either. He said, he understood the whole thing and then kind of made a joke about it. He says, this wasn't overnight that everybody came in here. If anything, I should ask Providence College for a bonus check based on the energy that was in here. So it's like, hey, I built this, and now they want to come and they want to curse me for coming back after I left them to go to Georgetown. Well, realize what I left behind, and he did. He did a good job. I think he's going to do a good job at Georgetown. I like him. Love his press conferences. Guy really knows how to do a press conference. The season, they're not going to do anything. They're 8-12 and 1-8 in the Big East. Providence with the win, 5-4 in the Big East, 14-6. They may be a tournament team. All right, let me get to this Joe Flacco conversation that Dan Patrick had on Friday. And Flacco is currently a free agent. He just signed a one-year deal with the Cleveland Browns and taking them to the playoffs. It's an amazing story for a guy who, as they say, was on the couch. Now, this is the first part of the conversation, and it starts with Patrick asking him about the Corvette that he won as the MVP of the Super Bowl 11 years ago when the Ravens beat the San Francisco 49ers. But he segs into how he got contacted by the Cleveland Browns to, as they say, come off the couch and quarterback the team. And it addresses something that RG3 has been talking about nonstop for years. And I just want you to hear that, the second part of this answer from Joe Flacco, and then I'll have a comment on it. This, again, Joe Flacco with Dan Patrick on Friday.
You won a Corvette didn't you? They gave you a Corvette when you won the MVP?
They did. They were still giving away cars. I'm not sure if they're doing that, but yeah.
Where is that Corvette?
Man, it's in an old garage, not on the road. It's not street legal right now. I don't have it registered, but it's in an old garage in the house my brother's living in right now.
Wait, it's not legal? It's not street legal? What are we doing?
It's street legal. I just don't have it registered. It's probably the tires are probably dry rot. It's probably not in the best shape, to be honest with you.
Does it say MVP? Anything that will
Yeah, you know what? There's like a little thing inside of the car and where it has the VIN number, it says Joe Flacco Super Bowl MVP.
Oh, cool. Yeah. All right, clear up something. What were you doing before the Browns called you? Were you doing what you're doing right now, sitting on the couch?
Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of that. I guess that's what everybody likes to say. But it was like an extended offseason with hope that it was an extended offseason, like with hope that there was going to be a signing at some point. But you just don't know if that's the case.
But were you getting calls or making calls?
No, neither. And there was probably a point in the offseason where my agent was making calls and hoping to get calls, but at that, at a certain point, neither of those things were happening.
But when Aaron Rodgers goes down, nothing.
Yeah, I mean, maybe my agent had some conversations, but not anything significant. It wasn't like we were, like I said, it wasn't. I'm sure he reached out to teams throughout the course of the season, but it wasn't like, I feel like when teams want you, they're probably going to reach out to you, and obviously you want to do a little bit of digging so that you make sure you're giving yourself the best chance, but it's ultimately not up to you.
So there he is. Okay, so there's Joe Flacco, who played in the league last year, who played for the New York Jets last year. He says they didn't call him. This is the one call that he got was from the Cleveland Browns, and he says when they're interested, they'll call you. Well, Griffin has been going around telling people, anybody will listen to him, and he even puts it out on his Instagram feed or some podcast that he does. And he says teams are calling him, but it has to be the right fit. They're not calling him. Now, he did acknowledge that the Jets didn't call. And he says, kind of like what Flacco says there, maybe my agent is talking to people. Griffin says, if somebody's reaching out on his behalf, he doesn't know necessarily who it is or what they're saying or who they're reaching out to. But no, Robert, the phone's not ringing. Nobody's calling you. Here's Joe Flacco, a former Super Bowl MVP. Finally got a call from the Cleveland Browns. And it would seem that somebody who played in the league last year, not 3 years ago, the last year that Griffin was in the league, might have been 2020, the 2020 season. That's the last time he played in the NFL. They're not calling anymore. All right, move on to this. This is about it kind of starts out, joking around about about who's the greatest of all time, but there's some real insight here from Joe Flacco that I think you're going to want to hear, and this is Flacco with Dan Patrick about what defines greatness and how you achieve that as an NFL quarterback.
Take me back to April of 2012. New York Times article where you said that you were the best quarterback in the NFL?
You know what? I'm trying to remember exactly. I feel like that was on a radio show in Baltimore or something like that, where it was like,
okay,
I was directly asked the question, and it was funny because I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. Like, of course I am, I do that with my kids. Just like, it's like I was talking to somebody recently. I ask my kids all the time, and who's the best? And if you're not going to believe it, then nobody's going to believe it. And it's not about just saying it. That's part of it, but it's about being put in situations where you have to overcome things and you start to actually believe it, and you believe it for good reason. So I was using it in that context. Like, I think it's important that your kids have that belief, but it's important to put them in situations where they have to overcome difficult things so that they have reason to actually believe it.
Do you think you're better than Brady and Peyton Manning right now?
Listen, man, those guys. Come on, look at what.
But right now, you're a better quarterback than Peyton Manning is.
Listen,
I don't know
Dan,
about Brady.
I love this conversation, but and in a private room, it would be a fun conversation to have. I love having the conversation with those guys. I'm not getting goaded into saying anything crazy.
Wait,
those guys
goat? Did you just say goat? You were goat? Whoa! You just Joe Flacco called himself the goat.
It's funny,
goated in. Okay.
I could have never imagined. I don't think any of us could have how long those guys were going to be in the league. I mean, obviously, especially how long Tom was going to be in the league, and I felt like there were some games there where we played in playoffs against him, and it was like, okay, he's probably got another year or two left, but he just set the standard. He set the standard in so many different ways, and not that standard's ever going to be reached by anybody else. It's very hard to wrap your head around a lot of the things that he did, and like I said, especially if there is some off chance that somebody comes and is able to do anything close to what he's done, I give him a lot of credit. A ton of credit, obviously, but to be the first to do so many different things and to kind of not really care about what other people think and what's supposed to happen and go out there and continue to do the things he did is just so incredible. I mean, I think he is a guy, you talk about arm strength and staying in shape. I think he's a guy that you look at him and he's in better shape at the end of his career and stronger physically. His arm got somewhere in probably 5-6 years in the league, I don't know if his arm actually did get stronger, but it looked like it did. He just did so many incredible things.
We're talking to Joe Flacco. What's your status now? Do you know where you're playing, if you're playing next year?
I don't. I mean, you know that. I don't know that. Listen, it's a typical offseason. I'm trying to get myself back into it, and I feel so fortunate to have been able to play for 2 months, as opposed to sitting here right now and getting back into the swing of things in the off season, and kind of looking back at this season man, I guess I'm done. Nobody gave me a call. And now to have that feeling okay, I was able to go out there and play, and I think I was able to show that I can still play. So now we'll see what happens this off season. So I'm excited about kind of the next couple months and what's going to happen.
But would you be satisfied being on a roster as opposed to being able to compete for the starting job?
Right. Listen, I think it's tough to talk about satisfied this and satisfied that. I think, there's part of you that's never really satisfied no matter what. If you're a starter, well, then you're not satisfied with, not winning every single game. And obviously, the last 3 years, I've been a backup. And obviously with aspirations to play at some point, and I've been able to play some games here and there. But listen, man, once you've played in this league and once you've played just football in general, all of us want to play football. So you're never going to be satisfied with sitting around and working hard and not really ever getting an opportunity. So satisfied, yeah, you're definitely not going to be that. I think you have to find ways each day to kind of stay focused and get yourself through those time periods, but you're never going to be satisfied with not playing football. And that's not just me, that's everybody in the league. I mean, you look at everybody probably from the outside looks at backup quarterbacks and man, that's a pretty good job. You get to make a couple $1 million a year and you get to sit on the bench and watch the guy go. It's not a good job, man. It sucks. It's miserable. You want to be playing. And not only that, you get nervous before a game, right? When you play and you're the guy, well, you're the guy. And you go out there and you're nervous before the game, but then the ball snaps and you go out there and you have fun and you're just in the moment. When you're the backup, you're literally on the sideline every single play, still dealing with pregame jitter, pregame nerves, you know what I mean? And you just never get rid of them. And then it's just not fun. So obviously not having to do that for most of my career, you get to look at that position in a little bit of a different way. And for those guys the guys that you do look at the guys that come in mid-game or come in whenever they do, and you got to give them credit. It's not as easy of a job as you want to make it out to be. And you definitely a part of that is the mental part where we all want to be out there playing.
I found that interesting. He's right. You look at the backup quarterbacks. Yeah, it's a great job. Look at that. He's healthy every week and doesn't have to play. And it's a couple $1 million a year, as he says. Yeah, but that's not the way these guys are wired. You don't get to be an NFL quarterback, even as a third stringer, unless you're highly competitive. And he's already been to the mountaintop. He's won a Super Bowl MVP. So if he comes back to Cleveland, and I'm not so sure he will. He'd be coming back as a backup next year. Is that something that he wants to do? I'm sure he's got a lot of money now. He might come in and say, well, that's a possibility. I will get to play because of injury, but he's not the kind of guy. It doesn't sound like that. Even though he's been hanging around the league a lot longer than people thought he would after his career kind of ended in Baltimore when he was replaced by Lamar Jackson. But he's always looking to play, and I thought that was very well put. Just a really good explanation of the way we look at backup quarterbacks versus the way that they really feel, especially somebody like Joe Flacco, who's won a Super Bowl. I found that good, and he's obviously material for the booth if he wants it. Now that's a whole nother topic which we can get into tomorrow. But Greg Olsen, if you watch those two games back to back. Tony Romo, to me, his broadcast career is mirroring what RG3 did on the field. He was sensational when he started, when he was predicting what the plays were going to be. He was never better than in the AFC Championship game when the Chiefs were playing Tom Brady's Patriots, and he was predicting play after play after play. But he was just out of the league. He knew what was going on. He'd been studying week after week for different games. I don't think he's putting in the work anymore. He's not very good. And Greg Olsen, who's going to be bumped, it appears, for Tom Brady. I'm still not 100% convinced Brady's going to do it for the $37.5 million a year he's going to be making. But he's really good. And now the networks are like, what are we going to do here? Greg Olsen is a valued commodity right now. We're going to bump him to the number 2 team for Brady. There's even talk they're going to put them in the booth together. I don't think it's really good for Brady. I don't think that's something he would want to do. Share the booth. He's a big star. And there's also even some discussion that I can't imagine that CBS would eat that kind of money, $17 million a year with a deal that probably has 5 or 6 years left to go, but that they might bump Tony Romo and put in Greg Olsen. And who knows what the contract language is for Romo. I don't think he can be bumped down to the number 2 team. It's really interesting. So the whole backup dynamic, I found that to be very well stated and very interesting from what Joe Flacco said. Coming up in the next hour, more on what happened to the Ravens yesterday, and continue to go through these Joe Buck interviews. Terrell Davis, who was a Super Bowl star and had a flash of a career and is in the Hall of Fame. We'll hear how it all got started, and it got started with a boost from a former Hall of Fame coach from the Washington Redskins. Stay with us. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. I'm kind of surprised about the kvetching I'm hearing about Kansas City and San Francisco rematching in the Super Bowl. It's not like it happens every year. It happened 4 years ago, and it was a really good game. And these two teams gave us great thrills yesterday. Not great thrills if you're a Ravens fan. Well, the Ravens, they handed them that game. It's just a terrible performance. Nothing like we'd seen all year. Worst time for Lamar Jackson to have a bad game. Had an awful interception. Throwing into triple coverage there at the end. Made some great plays. 13-yard completion to himself off a tip ball. And on the ground was their leading rusher. It's really great things, but these are the Chiefs, and these are the Chiefs that have been there year after year after year. And we're getting into that discussion about GOAT and where Patrick Mahomes is. This rush to name him the GOAT. Let's pump our brakes on that a lot. He's got 2 Super Bowls. He's a slight underdog to make it 3. He makes it on a regular basis, 4 Super Bowl appearances in 6 years as a starter. But come on, he hasn't unseated Tom Brady yet. He hasn't unseated Joe Montana. I'd say he's a better quarterback than Terry Bradshaw, but he's still 2 Super Bowl championships behind him. Let's see. He does amazing things. He's an unbelievable athlete, and he's a smart football player. He's he's doing things as a quarterback that we just haven't seen before. I mean, we've had quarterbacks who could run for sure, like Michael Vick. Even RG3's rookie year was tremendous, but he's more than that. He's just so smart and making plays, and this connection that he has with Travis Kelce, it's unbelievable. Look, he had Tyreek Hill. Can you imagine if this team still had Tyreek Hill? Whoa! But with what he's got, he's making it happen. The offensive line is very good. He gets protection, but he also has this escapability where, guys are not necessarily looking to pin their ears back and get him. But I'm looking forward to this. I think this is going to be great. And the Brock Purdy story, look, I sent out a tweet which did not age well. They were down 24-7, and I said Joe Montana's not walking through that door. Montana was actually there. He was part of the pregame and the postgame hoo-ha. And he is, in my mind, he's the greatest 49er quarterback of all time. Some would say Steve Young. Young was great too. He made the Hall of Fame. But Montana was tremendous. And if things had lined up a little bit differently, if he hadn't had certain injuries, he might have gotten 6, maybe even 7. Who knows? But they were, in a position which is so unusual that it would never happen today. But Bill Walsh was smart enough to look around and go, oh, well, he's not playing very well in Tampa, so let me go get Steve Young. We don't know if Joe Montana is going to be able to play because he's coming off a back injury. So I'm going to go get Steve Young, and we'll have him around just in case. Well, turned out Montana recovered, played 3 more years. Young played behind him, and then when he got his opportunity, he won a Super Bowl too. But I look at just, the matchup of these two teams. It's great teams, great coaches. In many ways, Kyle Shanahan is right off the Andy Reid tree. Andy Reid worked with Mike Shanahan. And, here's something else, too. I was just thinking about the coaching and where Kyle Shanahan ranks. There are a lot of people ready to anoint him as one of the all-time greats. He's got to start winning Super Bowls, okay? But once he does, how many does he need to win to surpass his dad? His dad has 2. And he came to Washington in 2010 after the Zorn disaster when Mike Shanahan came in. And at the time, the discussion was, okay, he's going to build things up here. He's got the autonomy to do it. Nobody knew that Dan was maintaining as much control as he did and did things like trade for Donovan McNabb when that's not something that Shanahan was really interested in doing. The meddling he did with RG3, all the other chazarai that marked that tenure, that 4-year tenure. But the feeling was Mike is going to come in, he's going to win, and he's bringing his kid, and he's going to turn the team over to his kid. And this succession plan was going to put Washington in a position to be a dynasty. Well, it didn't work out that way, did it? And the owner backed the quarterback in RG3, and everything fell apart. RG3 said, get rid of the Shanahans and the whole crew, which now populates the NFL. Everywhere you look, there's somebody off the Shanahan tree. But how many times have we seen a coach's son surpass what was a great coaching career? There have been sons of coaches who have done very well. I mean, Bill Belichick is the son of a coach. His dad was an assistant coach at Navy for many years. Revered there, never became a head coach at the college level, but introduced his son to coaching football. Of course, Bill Belichick zoomed past him. But I'm trying to think, Don Shula's kid was a head coach for a short time with Cincinnati. He got that because of his name, and he turned out he wasn't a very good coach and got out of coaching completely. Ran the family restaurants, maybe still does. I don't even know if there are Shula steakhouses anymore. There used to be one around here at one time, and didn't work out. Sons of coaches, unless I'm missing something, I'm racking my brain, but I can't remember when a son of a coach got on the level of a great coach and could be in the discussion to be considered a better head coach than his dad. But that might be the case. That might be the case with Kyle Shanahan, as he's really done a tremendous job there and kept his team together. I mean, the body language and the looks that he was given in the first half, it was like, oh, man, I didn't expect this. Detroit's running over us. But, thanks to some really questionable calls by Dan Campbell, but also staying the course with this young quarterback, they have done it. I mean, a lot of organizations, including this one here, wouldn't be able to overcome a draft blunder like Trey Lance. Not only did they take him number 3 overall, they moved up to take him. They traded draft picks to move up to take a guy who had very little college experience. His last year with South Dakota State, I think, or North Dakota, one of those Dakota schools. Played only like one game because of COVID, and came to the NFL with 15 NFL starts or 15 college starts, and turns out he's a bust. And they've overcome that. Yeah, you got lucky, but you also got a coach who knows how to coach him, and Kyle Shanahan has done a great job. So, when you think of sons of coaches and sons of managers, he may be able to take the torch and run past his dad, but he does need to win a Super Bowl, which he is a slight favorite to do. Now, as for the Chiefs are, this Chiefs are kind of like what the Patriots were 10 years ago, 8 years ago, whatever it was, where Tom Brady would say, hey, we're still here, we're still around. And, when you want to count them out, when you go, they didn't look very good in the middle of the season. And you watch out. Patrick Mahomes, yeah, he's been to Super Bowls, but he's always gone there with nothing but home games. Never played a road playoff game. Well, they're going to Buffalo, and they're going to have to win a game in Buffalo. So watch out, kids. They won a game in Buffalo. Okay, they won that. They come to Baltimore. It's a Baltimore team, which I thought was unbeatable. I mean, you always make yourself look stupid when you say something like that. But I looked at the offense, which was damn good, with a quarterback who's going to be the MVP again, a mostly healthy team. Odell Beckham, he had injuries at the beginning of the season. He was healthy. He didn't even have a target until there were 10 minutes left in the game yesterday. That's amazing. They have still got a running game. They lost some running backs along the way, but they got that. Got Zay Flowers having a hell of a rookie year. and should have gotten in the end zone on that dive when he got the ball knocked out of his hands. One of the most awful fumbles in the history of that franchise. So it's almost Ernest Biner-like from the AFC Championship game 35 years ago when he was playing for Cleveland against Denver. I mean, it was just a devastating thing, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it against the Kansas City Chiefs team that knows what it's doing and is still sticking around. This is Jeff Darlington of ESPN after the game with Travis Kelce, who, again, 10 for 10 on targets in the first half. The Kelce numbers from yesterday, I mean, they're not, he did catch a touchdown. They're not overwhelming. Let me look in the box score. Yes, I'm looking at an actual newspaper in that. He caught, Travis Kelce, 11 passes for 116 yards. So he didn't catch a pass after he caught one very, very early in the third quarter. They shut him down the rest of the way, but he had 11 catches for 116 yards and the touchdown. And this is Kelce talking to Jeff Darlington afterwards.
Travis, another Super Bowl in a year that perhaps to some felt like the unlikeliest chance that you guys had. What do you say about that?
The Chiefs are still the Chiefs, baby. And damn, it feels good to be on this team, man. There's a lot of camaraderie on this team, man. A lot of, we had to really circle the wagons. And man, it feels good to be at this point, but we got one more.
I want to call it the Travis Kelce era, but it also is the Patrick Mahomes era. He has gone to 4 Super Bowls in his first 6 years. What can you say about your quarterback?
the best in the world, baby. You can't say enough great things about Pat, and no better than that last throw right there to Marquez. And man, it was great to see him show up and make sure he just quieted all the haters, baby.
You don't take it for granted either. You never know how many you're going to get to, if you're going to get to any. And so it truly is special. Just to do it with these guys after what we've been through all season long, the guys coming together, it really is special. But I told them, I mean, the job's not done. I mean, our job now is to prepare ourselves to play a good football team in the Super Bowl and try to get that.
It's Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes in that conversation. Mahomes, part of the news conference from last night. So there they go. Mahomes, 4 Super Bowl appearances in 6 years as a starting quarterback. Just really remarkable. As for the Ravens, again, you talk about teams that beat themselves, and they did. As Ken Bitters used to say, more games are lost than won. And they lost this. And I have been enamored with Roquan Smith. Roquan Smith, they picked up in a trade with the Chicago Bears last season. He instantly became the leader of the team last season. They didn't have an offense because Lamar was hurt. But this year, the defense has been even better. And teaming with Patrick Queen in an odd number combo as you got Smith wearing 0 and Queen wearing 6. You don't usually see linebackers in the NFL, but they changed the way the numbering rules are, so they have that. And the two of them have been tremendous all year. And we're good enough at times to win this game, but with the mistakes that the offense kept making, wasn't able to overcome this. And we saw, at the end of the game, there was still a chance for the Ravens to get the ball. And key play, they have too many men on the field. So that was the 7th of their 8 penalties in the game, and that made a difference too. This is Smith on the end of the season that he had hoped wouldn't come yesterday.
It sucks, and just knowing how close we were to what we really wanted, but at the end of the day, it is what it is, and it's just got to add more fuel to you at the end of the day, and that's how I'm taking it. So that's what it's going to be. But it definitely sucks and hurts.
Yeah, he is for the long term. Did sign a contract extension. As for Lamar, he's asked about frustration, and this is the way he put it.
Well, I'm not frustrated at all. I'm angry about losing. We're a game away from the Super Bowl. We've been waiting all this time, all these moments for an opportunity like this, and we fell short. But I feel like our team we're gonna build. This offseason we're gonna get right, get better, grind, and try to be in this position again. But on the other side of victory.
Yeah, it's like you climb and you climb and you climb. It's so devastating when you lose in this round. Maybe it's even worse at the Super Bowl. Hard to get perspective, but when you get to this round and you're right on the cusp, and you look at how hard you worked to have the home field advantage, and you got all that, and everything was lining up so well for you at the end of the season. In a matter of 6 days, on a Monday night, you go to San Francisco, beat the hell out of them, and then you come home to beat a red-hot Miami team, beat the hell out of them, and then you get to this point where everything's lined up, and you're finally going to get to the Super Bowl, and it doesn't happen. One quick thing on the trophies. And I got some pushback on this on Twitter yesterday, and I understand it. I don't like the ceremonies when, you win a division and they give you hats and T-shirts. I think that's stupid. And I think the trophy presentations, while it's all part of the big marketing machine of the NFL, and it's a big, big ceremony and everybody gets all excited, I think the giving out of the the Lamar Hunt Trophy for the AFC champion and the George Halas Trophy for the NFC champion is stupid. That's dumb. No, nobody says, hey, I want to win a Halas. Hey, I want to win a Hunt. No, you want to win a Lombardi. That's what it's all about. And, to get to that level almost feels like it's not a participation trophy because you had to be damn good. I mean, you have to be one of the 2 best teams in the NFL. I understand that. But awarding a trophy for that, and you can say, well, it's 2 conferences. One conference is the NFC and one conference is the AFC. Therefore, if you win that, you should get a trophy. This is not college. This is not like winning the ACC title or the Big Ten title. There's one title that you want in the NFL. You want to be a Super Bowl champion. That's how you're judged. At the end of your career, it's almost an indictment to say, well, like Jim Kelly. Jim Kelly won 4 Lamar Hunt trophies. He I don't know if they called it that then. I don't even know if they gave out a trophy. But he won 4 AFC championships. He was 0 for 4 in Super Bowls. That's what people remember. Not all his fault, but he didn't deliver. He's in the Hall of Fame. Didn't get there. Fran Tarkenton, 0 for 3 on Super Bowls. Didn't do it. So to give out a trophy for not quite winning the whole thing. I remember when the Patriots were winning them on a regular basis, Belichick, they maybe put it in his hand for 10 seconds and he put it aside. Like, don't give me this. I want the Lombardi. And so I find that to be, of course, I don't have to watch it. And once the Ravens game was over, quickly switched over to watch Fox to get the pregame for the 49ers and the Lions. But I just find it to be distasteful. It just doesn't feel right for me as a fan. I go, hey, let's celebrate the Hunt champions. Let's celebrate the champions from the NFC. And no, what you want. I was kind of surprised about this. I once interviewed Carl Peterson at the Super Bowl, and Carl Peterson was a big mover and shaker in the NFL. He's the one that hired Dick Vermeil in Kansas. He had a long run in Kansas City, and he had a long run in Philadelphia. He was wearing his Eagles ring, and I was asking what it was, and it was the Eagles NFC Championship ring. I don't see a lot of people wearing those kind of things. Super Bowl rings for sure, and especially during Super Bowl week, like they're your ticket into any place you want to go. You wearing one of those, so hey, step right in. But wearing that, I don't know. It just doesn't feel right to celebrate a championship that is a championship of a conference, not the championship of the NFL. And this is relatively new. These trophy presentations, probably in the last 20 years. But I think they're dumb. I don't find them to be of much interest to me anyway. All right, enough of that. Coming up tomorrow, we'll see where we are in the coach search. They're due to talk to more candidates today, and maybe by tomorrow night we could have a deal in place. Could be possible, and we'll have a whole new ball game as we move forward with the Washington Commanders. So I want to thank everybody for listening today. Tony is coming up next, and I will see you back here tomorrow at 9 a.m.